So my DJ retreat this past weekend off the coast of Spain and the island the kids like to call Ibiza with some of the best in the game. David Guetta, Everlast from House of Pain, some of those guys. They were really focusing. Did a couple of hotbox things. They were focusing on my fade, and I was a little bit hasty on the fade there, but I think it still worked. So the kids know what that song was. But anyway, welcome to the Scary Alvarez podcast. I'm Scary Alvarez, Wine Island Enjoyer, Sherry Wine Destroyer, Jake's grandpa, and Cindy's plus one when she'll have me. And as always, we are very excited to bring aboard Lockdown Badgers Ryan Harings. Always a fun show with you, Ryan. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, man, I'm always glad to be here. It's funny, your intro has so many titles to it. I don't know if have you ever watched Game of Thrones by any chance?
I lived it, but yeah, I've never seen the show.
So there's this one scene, if anyone is out there, I won't belabor it, but there's these two pivotal characters that meet, and one character has all these titles, like the Khaleesi of the Grass Sea, the Mother of Dragons, the Breaker of Chains, and the other guy's just like, he's from the North. I feel like that's us. You have all these titles, and it's just like, it's Ryan. He does a podcast.
You're from the North. Yeah, that's great. Well, let's do this. And actually, Game of Thrones, that's a rom-com, right?
It has moments of rom-com mixed with a
Okay.
few other themes.
Oh, great, good stuff. Well, I'll check that out with my lovely bride of many decades. We'll have our special time there. Our anniversary is coming up soon, so maybe I'll get her the box set. But anyway, it's great having you on, Ryan. I know you've been busy, previewing the 2024 football season, and so we don't break any new ground here. We're going to do a little bit of the same, except for we're going to spin it in kind of the Scary Alvarez sort of way, and we're going to do the 2024 Badger football superlatives, kind of like a yearbook, the most likely twos of this upcoming season. Have a little bit of fun with that. You look like you're so excited you can almost not contain yourself. Almost like the podcast I did with the soccer women. They were so excited to be there. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of just tired, but I am definitely excited to be here. I like superlatives, so that's right up my wheelhouse, and let's do it.
When you were in high school, Ryan, did you win any superlatives?
No, I can tell you this. I finished second to last academically in my high school, so I barely graduated. I keep meaning to reach out to the guy who finished last. He's probably in jail, but
Okay, so you're Ohio State material, Ohio State football
I was,
material.
I was nothing material. I had to.
Okay.
I went to the Navy because I had very few other options, and really quick, I went back home at one point, and one of my teachers who had known me in high school, science teacher, she was like, "Wait, you have a clearance? You, you do? You really? Stop, you?" So yeah, there were no good superlatives attached to my name in high school. Absolutely not.
Well, Ryan, you had to have a little bit of like, yeah, I have a clearance, and you have a Bunsen burner, Miss Thompson. You like
Yeah,
you could have really burned her down a little, but you're an honorable man, and I think you were nicer than I probably would have been.
we laughed together. I'll say that.
That's great stuff. Do you guys go have a beer or anything?
No, no,
Okay.
we did
All right.
not. We laughed together and then we parted ways.
Just feeling this out. Just wondering how weird we're gonna get here. Okay, so we're gonna get back to the superlatives, and I'm gonna give the category, and then I might defer to you on a few and go forward on a few of these. But there's just a lot of fun kids in this room this year. I think it's a kind of it's a talented team. I think a significantly more talented team than we've seen in the past couple of years. But it's also a team full of personalities, as you yourself are learning this, having so many of these kids on your show over the past 9 months or so. You understand the personalities in that room and the skill that is now on both sides of the ball, and so this should be a fun one. All
Yeah,
right.
let's do it.
Yeah, I always have to have a couple pregnant pauses in my show just
No,
to make sure
into
that I'm
something.
just make sure I'm doing it the right way. Okay, well let's start right from the top. And we can do this for offense and defense, but let's go with most likely to succeed in 2024. That's kind of the fun one. That's the golden chalice. But I'm gonna with offense and or defense, who are your most likely to succeed?
Offense, I'm going to go Tyree Walker. Just saw him in practice today. Listen, I think the hype is real. The hype matches what we're seeing on the field. Big, fast. I said today, his feet kind of remind me of Ron Dane. If you remember Ron Dane, like one of the great things about him, it was the size, obviously, but his feet were really good for a bigger back, the ability to cut in space and really be nimble, find the hole, and then push forward north and south. I think Tyree Walker's got all of that. He does, yeah, he's not Ron Dane, obviously, because nobody is, but I think he's going to have a monster year. He also had an incredible blitz pickup today, put Tyler Jancy on his back, also caught a couple passes, had a 55-yard run where he broke it off on the inside and then broke a couple tackles. And even on the plays where he stopped, he falls forward for 3 or 4 yards. So most likely to succeed on offense, I'm going Tyree Walker.
Ooh, that's a dark horse. I didn't see that one coming. That's a good one. I love it. Are you seeing it? And I'm not sure how close you're looking here, but I'm not saying that there was fear in the eyes of defenders when Dane practiced against his own team, but there was a certain almost like a rigidity in those practices. Are you seeing a little bit of that from the and these are tough guys on the Badger defense, but are you seeing a little bit of that? Oh God, I'm the one that's got to hit this guy, like that kind of like.
Yeah, we had Rico. So Rico was in media availability today, and he's just coming back from an injury. He had a shoulder arm injury and just worked himself back in. And I forget who asked the question. It might have been Kokorowski, but somebody asked him the question, when did it feel like you were kind of back in, like a couple hits? And he's like, wow, yeah, I felt like I was back in the game when Tyree hit me. So, yeah, the defense feels it. There's definitely a sense of the physicality that he brings. And that's the same thing the Oklahoma beat writers talked about when I talked to one of them about Walker. They said, he's a bowling ball with legs. You're going to love him. He's a fan favorite in Norman. A lot of people in Norman were frustrated he didn't get more reps, had 7 touchdowns last year. I was blown away by how quick and decisive he looked today. North and south, really quick. The size and strength didn't surprise me because that was the scouting report, but the speed, explosiveness, and just kind of the vision and nimbleness between the tackles, I think are pretty impressive. So, yeah, I think the defense feels it, and I'm excited to see him this year.
That is great to hear, and obviously there's a competitiveness in the room with Malusi, but I have to believe this is good news for Malusi. Not just the different styles they have, but knowing he doesn't, given his injury history especially, have to go out there and code it 25, 30 times. Just knowing that you have this 1A, 1B, and who knows, maybe Walker runs away with the job, but I just think that's it's nothing but good news to hear that Walker is having that kind of start to camp.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's probably gonna be better for Ches, not just from the health standpoint, but being fresher. Like you're gonna see maybe a reinvigorated Ches Malusi too if he's getting 5 less touches and over the course of 13 games, that's 65 less carries.
Yeah.
That could only bode well for him. And the freshmen are gonna play too, one or two of them, at least one of them. I think Akers gonna play too. So you're gonna have more of a total share there that's going to be divided up among several running backs. I think it's going to keep them all healthier, all fresher. And I think the offensive line is going to be really good too, especially from a run blocking standpoint. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's going to keep them fresher.
Yeah, that's great. And not to hit the conclusion too early here, but I can tell not only from your shows that I've been watching and your impressions of camp and otherwise, but I can tell you're excited about this team relative to last year's team. I can see it in you. This is not the same animal that we had last year.
No, I think it's better. Although it's funny, and I don't want to take this into too much of a different direction from the superlative show, but I do think some people have gotten, I don't want to say a little too excited now. So every fall, it's like spring training in baseball, right? Everybody's in the best shape. Every question's been answered. The offseason's been great. And, there's other teams in the Big Ten have gotten better too. And I still think this team has question marks. Like I still think there's question marks depth on both lines, TBD, special teams a little bit. But yes, to answer your overall point, I think this team is better than last year. It's more talented. It's faster. It's more athletic. I think the coaching staff did a really good job of retooling in the offseason, but there's still some real questions here that I think if you're looking critically at the team, can probably keep you up at night if you're that type of person.
Yeah, I don't sleep, Ryan. You know that I never slept. I haven't slept in the last 56 years. But yeah, I don't. That's for mortals. But no, your point is well made. And look, anyone who will listen to me, and this is not being a negative Nelly or doubting Thomas type, Badger fan, but I said they're going to have to be so much better this year to be a good team than Chris' 2017 team and 2016 teams did to be a good team because these schedules are astronomically harder. It's not, and that's no diss to any, because Chris has shown with the number of draft picks and NFL guys in those teams, those were super talented teams. This team is going to have to be way better than those teams when you're playing like 1 or 2 ranked teams all season as opposed to this team where there are already 5 coaches poll top 25 teams on their schedule, and we're not a top 25 team right now. And I have done some writing on that for Bucky's fifth quarter, and it's going to be an incredible test to see where we are as a program. But I'm almost bracing for this team. If they win 7 games, 7-5 would not necessarily be a disappointing effort this season. That sounds crazy to say that, but you could have an actually the best Badger team in several years and be 7-5. That is just how good the schedule is. So we'll see. I'm hoping for better, but that's where we are. Let's keep going to the superlative stuff. We just each say such great stuff that it's hard to stay on task. How about most improved? And this is obviously not freshman, but like someone
Mhm.
who that I mean, you know what most improved means, but someone we expected something out of last year and just didn't get it. And I'm going to start with this one. Bryson Green is going to be my guy for this one. I don't think Bryson Green is going to be a 70 catch 1,000 yard, 8 touchdown kind of guy, but he is going to finally get some work on the boundary that we were not seeing last year. Presuming he stays healthy. I know his injury issues were part of that, but he was I think a very disappointing player. He would admit the same just based on how that went. And Nazir for Korean on the cornerback, I think is going to also take a gigantic jump if he stays healthy. Those are kind of my two guys I've figured for this.
Yeah, those are two really good ones. A lot of people will agree with you on Bryson Green, and the coaching staff has already basically agreed with you on Fort Green. Bryson Green looked good today too. Watching camp, able to create some separation. He looks a little better. His body looks a little better. And if you remember last year, he came into camp hurt, right? He really
Yes.
didn't get healthy until fall camp, and then you're still adjusting to a new scheme, a new system, a new quarterback, and a quarterback that kind of struggled, and an offense that struggled, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, it wasn't a good ecosystem for him. If you put a seed into bad soil, it's not going to grow very well. It doesn't matter how strong that seed is. That could be an heirloom seed. It's not going to take root. So, yeah, I think those are
Ryan,
really good
I
ones.
don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I'm not in the agrarian arts, but I do. I will take your word for it that means something relevant. Thank you for.
The heirloom
That's a
seeds are
great
the ones
analogy.
that come from. They're the pure seeds that haven't been altered.
Oh,
But
okay.
my point is, you still need a good ecosystem for those things to grow. And it was a bad offense last year. I think those are really good ones. I would have gone for Kareem, but I'll go a different route on each side just for a little diversity's sake. It's too simple to say Jake Renfro. Obviously, just him being healthy is an improvement. But I think Nelson is a guy that I would point at. Again, I think sometimes we gloss over the fact that these players are pretty young. They're college kids, right? They're not seasoned pros. And then you suddenly take an offensive system and a power run scheme for the offensive line and say, we're going to completely revamp this. And we expect you to be really good year one. You're going to have wider splits, pass block more. And it wasn't great for Nelson. And he got kind of toasted in that Washington State game a couple times. That there were big reasons why we lost it. But I thought he got better as the year went on. He's reshaped his body a little bit. And I'll tell you, the coaching staff is really high on what he's done this offseason. I think it's telling he was sent to media days. I think it's that doesn't happen unless they have a great offseason and they've really embraced it. So Nelson's a guy I'd point to on that offensive line as I expect a big year from him, a bounce back year. Defensively, I'm going to go Chaney. Chaney, I thought, was a pretty good linebacker last year that kind of got drugged down because that group as a whole wasn't very good. But I thought he was the one that showed flashes, and now he's come back a year bigger, stronger, with better talent around him. I think that's going to allow him to flourish because you're not going to ask him to do as much this year, and he can really simplify, right, and really focus on what he's really good at, which is gap-to-gap run defense, reading the opposing offense, understanding schemes, getting in the backfield, disrupting rushing attacks. I think you're going to see a really good Chaney, and I think you're going to see a really good Jack Nelson.
That's great. Those are good choices, and I agree. I mean, I think a lot of Badger fans had kind of written Cheney off. They figured he was going to be in the portal because we got all these guys coming in, and I love the fact that he stayed and said, "I'm going to battle," and here he is, high on the depth chart because he's taken his game and gotten better with it. I agree. I think a lot of people saw the flashes, but that defense was a mess last year with the tackling,
Mm-hmm.
especially. It was just an absolute I'm thinking Tressel probably has half as much hair as he did when the season started because he was ripping it out every single game. And I think they led the Big Ten in missed tackles by a substantial margin. It was some sort of statistic like that that was just very un-Wisconsin like. So cutting down the missed tackles will be very helpful, especially when you're playing, Dylan Gabriel type Heisman Trophy favorites kind of teams where you're going to have to wrap up a little bit better when he gets the ball out in space. So that's good stuff. Well, okay, let's move on to the next one. And this is kind of a fun one. Most likely to be a football coach someday.
Hmm.
And let's just start with this one. I have someone in mind. I think this was they received all the first place votes in my self poll, but you can kick it off here.
Hmm. I mean, for the on this is gonna sound redundant, but like Cheney's the first guy that steps up for me. His dad's a coach. His dad's on the Colorado staff, long time high school Florida coach. He has every intangible you can think of. So Cheney would be one for me, but I could flip it over. Braden Locke is a guy. Everybody you talk to says football genius. Lives on the whiteboard. You can't get him out of coaches' rooms. Understands and digests offensive schemes like it's Cheerios in the morning. So I think Locke is a guy that would certainly fit into that type of mold. And then I definitely think Cheney again is that type of guy from a football intelligence and just kind of character and tangible standpoint. I think both those guys get it.
That's great. And Locke was my choice, which means their answer is correct. Congratulations. That's 100% Ryan. And you got some extra credit there with Jake Janey. Um, the best freshman. Now, the caveat to this is I think it's conceivable that there may not be a true freshman. That's I guess let me qualify this. A true freshman who makes a huge dent in the on the playing time this year, but just a guy who's having good practices, and that if not this year, he's going to bang next year. And Xavier Lucas is my choice for that one. They're almost breathless. You can tell they're like trying to be not be overly too much praise and but you can just hear it in the coaches in the timbre in their voice when they're describing this guy. And I can't remember who it was. One of his teammates said, "How the hell did you get him out of Florida?" Like they're just like he's going to be that good. That's my best freshman this year. There are several others too, but that's Lucas is the guy who stands out for me.
Yeah. Listen, when we did at the end of last year, or when last year's signing class popped, we did a community ranking, like who are the best kids in this class. Essentially, Lucas was number 2 on my list, and number 1 was Metor simply because he's the quarterback, and you kind of got to build a class around it. So, non-quarterback division, Lucas was my favorite guy, and that was before all this stuff happened. So that's still my guy. Ricardo Holman's the one that said, "How did they let him get out of Florida?" We talked to
Oh,
Nicer Forkering today, and he said this is good. This guy's going to be a star. I mean, kind of unprompted. They almost speak about him breathlessly. The players and the coach. Forkering said this guy's going to be a star. And then I think Colton Bartholomew followed up like, what makes him so good? And I thought this answer was great. Nicer paused for a second, and then he said, well, it's the speed, the confidence, the composure, the height, the physicality, the technique, everything. I'm like, yeah, he's like a checklist. He's like, and Forkering got to a point where he's just like, everything. He's got literally everything. So I think he's a future star. I think the one guy that has risen the most in my eyes is Dylan Johnson, the defensive tackle, from when we signed him to where he is now. Man, he looks absolutely the part. Big, physical, great leverage. Had a couple really nice reps today. 290 pounds, state championship wrestler. But it's Lucas to me.
okay. Yeah, the same things that they were saying about Lucas were said of me when I was at Nebraska as a linebacker. So it's very familiar. I remember that, and he just needs to keep his himself grounded, as did I, and just let his teammates pick him up and stuff. But I'm excited to see what he can do in the future, and I just the added side benefit is if you pluck a kid like that from South Florida and he comes to Wisconsin, I mean, this, and has success at the collegiate and hopefully at the NFL level way down the road, that just makes it so much easier to grab guys like that again from the same schools. It becomes a pipeline where it's not seen as holy hot. And this isn't criticizing the comment, but how did you get the guy? It's going to be like, yeah, that's what Wisconsin's the place where you go to play if you're this kind of guy, and that'll be a nice transition that we'll hopefully get with this coaching staff.
Yep, 100%. Because people talk about this is something Lucas has talked about Sauce Gardner, right? And he said Luke Fickle got this guy. So yeah, like they understand that they're following players that have been attached to this coaching staff. So if you were to add a Xavier Lucas to a Sauce Gardner, talent begets talent. It just makes it easier. So yeah, that's 100% correct.
Love it. Okay, here's a little bit of a strange one. And not that the standard is as high as it once was, but work with me here. Most likely to be president someday.
Hmm.
I can go
Do you have
first. Let
somebody?
me go first.
Yeah,
I've
let
got
me
a
think on it and see what you got.
yeah, and this is based on just locker room vibes you get about this guy, but Will Pauling. I just feel like this is the guy that could go into a room, and when he walks into a room, everyone listens. He's a very funny guy, and he's known to have a great sense of humor, being incredibly quick witted, and I just think that he sort of commands a room, and I'm presuming he plays that role in the wide receivers room, but that's the guy I would kind of put that label on.
Yeah, Pauling's a good one. I've talked to him. Really, really good kid. That's a really hard one. I had a really RJ Delancey came over and talked to us today and took the time to introduce himself to every person and shake hands with the media, which I thought was really impressive. So that is a little recency bias, but I thought that was very, very impressive. I can tell you one guy I've had the privilege of talking to a couple times. And I haven't talked to everybody on the roster, obviously, so I'm a little biased probably towards the people I've talked to and interacted with. Cole LaCrue is a really interesting kid from an intangible, from a leadership, from a toughness standpoint. Lost his dad when he was pretty young, had to grow up really early. Tons of confidence. He's one of the people that you talk to who will remember that you have kids, and then he'll ask, "Hey, next time you talk to him, hey, how are your kids doing?" So he understands the relationship side of it. He's a quarterback, which kind of a natural leadership thing. I might go LaCrue on this one. Again, I have a little bias there because I he's been on the show a couple times. I root for him. But I really do like him. I think he's got a lot of swagger, which, listen, if you're going to be a leader, you need to have some swagger to you. So I might go LaCrue on this one.
Okay, yeah, I like that one too. In a slightly different way, but similar to Jake Chaney, he could have easily said, "Come to me,
Hmm.
Portal. Look at all this." There's and back when Evers was on the team, we had this quarterback room that just had a lot of dudes in it with high end potential. And then, of course, you're going into the 24 class with Matoyer, the 25 class with Locke, and beyond now. And he's like, he's betting on himself. We don't know how that's going to turn out. Someone is going to have to not get the playing time, and that's the reality of college football. But I love the fact that he's betting on himself, and that
Hmm.
it's just one slice of the pie for this kid. And I saw the interview too. He's very well spoken for his age, especially. Um, it's easy to see the leadership qualities. Uh, Kind of almost like evolving at a younger age, and you expect to see them in LaCrue. So good for him, and I wish him all the best. We're gonna go to newcomer of the year. So this isn't really it's not like freshman because I don't think a true freshman is probably going to be that guy, but just someone who is new to the program. So I guess I'm limiting this to transfers, likelihood. Um, I'm going to start, and I'm going to echo what you said. Walker at running back on offense. I'm excited for what he is going to bring, and I think the hype is real. And then Johnny Pius, outside linebacker. Hopefully he'll be making those quarterbacks run around and get up with their breath knocked out of them a few times. Those are the two guys that I'm probably the most excited to see that are new in the uniform.
Yeah, I love Heist. Can we do coaches fit into this or just players?
Hey, why not? Let's do this. This is the freestyle environment that I run here, Ryan. This is when I'm a DJ and I'm in Ibiza, and Kelvin Harris is doing some new loops and dropping the bass at the 10-4. Maybe it takes a little longer. Maybe it's a deeper bass. Who knows? But I'm ready to ride that train, man. So let's go for it.
I understood like 50% of that sentence,
Yeah,
but
me too. Me too.
I do understand the context of it. You know, that being said, I'm still not going to go to a coach, but I think both line coaches are really nice additions. I think Whitlow and Blazek really, really great additions to the staff, and I think there's going to be an impact there. There was demonstrable frustration from inside the program with how the O line was coached last year. That's not good, right? So I think those are big hires. At offense, I feel like and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Like, don't you kind of just, if we're taking say newcomer of the year, don't you kind of have to say quarterback? Doesn't it have to be Tyler Van Dyke? Because if it's not, the implications of that are a little worrisome to me, right?
You raise a good point, and I guess I want to detangle this a little bit. This isn't any sort of lack of confidence. I think he's going to win the job. If you read between the lines, I think he's he had a really good day today. Okay,
Hmm.
maybe his best day in camp, including the spring. I think in all likelihood he's going to be the guy, and he needs to be good. And so I wasn't trying to say that he's not my pick, so that means he's going to be mediocre. And here we go, Braden Locke. So that point is very well made, Ryan. But I just kind of feel like I don't know. Maybe it's not. It's how I view quarterbacks, and maybe this is a remnant of the quarterback's role in Wisconsin offense when I was coaching, and where you could have a great dude there who takes care of the keys and doesn't crash the car and makes plays when he needs to, like a John Stocco, and you are in great shape if you have that guy not turning it over because you have so many guys in other positions that can make that. That's more how I'm looking at it. I think that Alex Van Dyke, he's going to have to be good this year, no matter what, if we're going to be successful. He has to be good. He has to be a 22, 23 touchdown, 5, 6, 7 pick guy for 3K if we're gonna be good. I'm just not expecting this to be some sort of crazy how we kind of viewed Mertz before 2020. Like he's going to be a 35 touchdown, 2 interception, Russell Wilson kind of guy. I just I think we would know that it was him if it by now if that was how it's going to look. So I'm keeping my mind open about it, but I do think he could have a very Van Dyke could have a very successful season in the context of this offense. And anything we get from him that drips of star power, that is a gravy bonus. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, it's fair. It's listen, and you can. So I guess there's best new player, right? And there's most important. And maybe that's where my brain is getting stuck a little bit because I agree with you. I think Tyree is more of probably a star. I think Tyler Van Dyke is more of a solid quarterback.
Yeah.
And I also fully agree with you that, and I've been making this point to a couple of people, and a couple of people push back a little bit, but I think, listen, I think if he was going to be the high ceiling version of Van Dyke that we had kind of envisioned when we first signed him, right? The guy who with the big time arm mobility, I think we've already would have seen him run away with that job. And
Yep.
the fact that we haven't, I think, indicates that he's probably not that guy, which is okay. Like, if he's still 80% of that guy, that's a good quarterback and you can win with that. To me, he's the most important piece, obviously, because he's a quarterback, but I can go with Tyree on that. I think that makes a ton of sense. Newcomer on defense, I think it's Jaheim Thomas.
Yep.
I love Piles. I'm pretty much on record as saying I think he leads the team in sacks this year. I think he's potentially a really good edge pass rusher. But sometimes I think we overthink it maybe just a tick. Jaheim Thomas was the 6th leading tackler in the SEC last year. And you brought him into a defense. The coaching staff's familiar with him. He's from he was part of that Cincinnati team, that program. So the learning curve and some of that isn't going to be quite as steep for him. I just think anyone who's overlooking him is maybe overthinking it a little bit. There's a rangy, athletic linebacker, tons of experience in the SEC. Yeah, I think it's Jaheim Thomas for me, but Pius is going to be really good. I think Leon Lowry is going to be really good. So
Yeah.
we saw Tackett Curtis get reps today. Brandon Lane on the defensive line looked really good today. So there's a lot of pieces they brought in that are going to play. To me, it's Jaheim Thomas, though, just because of what he's done and in arguably the best football conference in college football. Like, it's still the SEC to me. And he was one of the best linebackers in that conference. So it's Jaheim Thomas for me. I think he blames that outside. He gives you versatility. I think he can do a little bit more on first through third down than John Pius can, who I think is going to be probably more of an edge rusher. I wonder how he's going to hold up setting the edge, in Big Ten play coming from the level he did. Whereas we know Jaheim Thomas can play the run, can play the pass, can rush the passer. So I think it's Thomas for me, but Pius is certainly up there as well.
Well, that's good. And it sort of feeds into my next question, which is very specific. It's a very specific superlative. Most likely to put up a big game versus Alabama, and James Thomas was going to be my pick in that one because the SEC pedigree that he has. I know that. Well, you wouldn't think of Arkansas and Alabama as being like the number one rivals. You knew that was one of the games he got jacked up for. It's just the way it is when you're playing in the SEC West. Every year you got to play this juggernaut Alabama team, and I just feel like he's going to be super excited and pumped to show out in Madison on the 14th September.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I'm gonna go with Wohler. I'm gonna go with Wohler in that one. This is a dude who was quite frankly pissed off with how the team performed last year in big games. He talked about it. He called teammates out on it. And again, this is a bigger, badder, faster, meaner version of Hunter Wohler. So I'm gonna go Wohler. I also think there's an element of this where the linebacking talent has been upgraded to a certain point where he's not going to have to chase everybody around. He's not going to have to make as many tackles, which I think frees him up to be a little bit more of a playmaker, to take a little less punishment and be a little more disruptive. That's the goal. I know for the fact that's the goal. I'm looking for that to happen. So give me Wooler on that one. There's a couple candidates, but I'm gonna roll with Hunter.
Love it. Love Hunter Wooler. And he's another one that kind of doing the bookending here. He's my guy for most likely to run the Camp Randall steps when no one's looking. That's, I think Hunter. Yeah, I'm not sure if there was another choice there, but he was the easy. He got all the first place votes on that one for me.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, Jake Ferguson's obviously gone, which narrows the pool a little bit.
He's the best.
Listen, I would put Chaney on that list because that dude is. I'm just telling you right now, that dude is cut from the right cloth. He's definitely on that list. I think Wooler's on that list. Let me think of a couple other cats really quickly. You know who's on that list? I think Max Lofi's on that list. You talk about another kid who persevered, who was tough, who's fought through injuries, who could have left when a bunch of new players came in, who was basically written off, who's been a Badger for a while, who's been through a couple regimes, who's been through some tough spots. And now look, he's going to be the starting slot corner because he persevered through all that. Coaches really like him. They like the leadership. I'm going to put Lofi in that list as well.
Love to see that. And again, I mean, how someone arrives at success doesn't. This isn't a value judgment, but seeing a kid, as you noted in Lofi, who kind of like we talked about with the crew, could have taken a different route and no one would have thought twice about it and would have understood, and he stuck it out. And just it's such a great feeling to see him now in a position to be getting meaningful playing time, and a lot of it, if things go the way it looks like it's going to go, uh, to be rewarded for that loyalty and for that hard-nosed attitude is good to see. And that it doesn't mean that I don't embrace also a transfer kid just the same. But like it's nice to see that. And that's a Chris guy. As much crap as Chris gets, that was an afterthought in one of his down recruiting classes, who's now starting for the Badgers even after they brought in a bunch of dudes. That that says something.
Agreed. It means something. A lot of that secondary, right? Wooler and Rico and Lofi and Austin Brown. A lot of Chris kids in that secondary. So it's worth noting and worth pointing out.
Yep, very true. So we're kind of on the descent here for my G6, and I'm looking at the time this has gone. I'm not totally sure what the accurate time is. We got off to a little bit of a ragged start at the beginning. We don't have to. We'll show them the final cut on this one, but um, the most likely really good team to lose to the Wisconsin Badgers this season is what?
Hmm. I think it's Penn State. I think we get Penn State at home. I'm a little listen. I don't think it's going to be easy. I know there's some people that are a little down on them. They've upgraded the offensive coordinator spot. I think Drew Allar is solid. He had a statistically good year last year. I also saw them against a good team in Ohio State not be able to move the ball at all. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Penn State is a bit of a paper tiger because I don't believe in their passing attack that much, and their offensive line's been a little up or down. I would say Penn State. I think USC could be got. It's early in the year. Those would be my two. I worry about Oregon at home later in the year. That's a team that has a ton of depth. Usually, the later you play somebody, the more depth in the trenches matters. And those are big question marks I have with the Badgers, and they're not question marks with Oregon. Oregon has like 8 blue chip defensive linemen. So they're well positioned to handle the rigors of a deep season. And then Bama, listen, it's not going to shock me if we play with them, but that team, despite turnover, despite new coaches, they're still just a much more talented roster top to bottom. So I would say Penn State followed by USC would be my top two I'm looking at right now for the Badgers to trip up. And I don't know if you consider Iowa in that tier or not, or if you're just
No,
thinking of
yeah, I don't consider them in that tier. It doesn't mean it's not going to be a 14-9 Iowa win. I'm just saying, like, it's just not. Iowa has earned the right based on what they've done in the past, and how their offensive, despite the fact that they aren't they don't have a superstar offensive coordinator. They went and got kind of a nice, comfortable guy again, which is great. I love to see it. But their offense is going to be better than. That's not saying a lot, but it's going to be better than it was in 2023. So I think I was going to be a load. And this is not to say this is my answer for it, because I think I probably have the same answer as you. I think Penn State or USC. But one game, sort of an offshoot of this, that I think Badger fans, and I mentioned this in my Bucky's fifth quarter article this week, Badger fans are taking for granted as a win. They're just kind of putting in the win column. It's the game at Lincoln. That is not going to be an easy game, especially we play a little bit later in the season, and I'm not suggesting that the 5-star is going to come in there and carve us up for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. I'm just saying that I have a lot of confidence in Matt Rule. And I do think it's going to be interesting watching the Badgers and Nebraska. I think they're in many ways they're parallels with two high-end college coaches that have turned programs around, kind of finding out who comes out on top between those two going forward. I'd still pick Fickle over Rule if we're hiring today, but I think Nebraska is going to be a really, really tricky, tough game, and it wouldn't shock me if Nebraska, given their schedule, were ranked when we play them. It would not shock me a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a great call, man. That's a team that I've talked about as being sneaky as well. I don't feel super confident about it. And for a couple of points you made, they're gonna get off to maybe like a 5-0, 6-0, 7-1 start. Their schedule is so soft to start. And when you talk about a very talented but very inexperienced quarterback, you want a runway, right? Like that's a runway, and he can build momentum. He can play a little more comfortably. He's got physical tools. You don't become the number 1 or number 2 quarterback in the country without physical tools. So it's not you want to play him early is my point. And Matt Rule will build the lines. He builds toughness. And quite frankly, a lot of the Wisconsin-Nebraska games have been close. They've come down to a possession. So yeah, I think it's a great call. That's one I do not feel great about whatsoever.
It scares me. I guess what I'm saying, scared might be. I don't get scared, but I feel like by the time we play them, that is going to be considered a really high quality Wisconsin win. And it's conceivable that could be our best win of the season. A road game against number 17 Nebraska wouldn't be shocking. That would be a big win. If I could be wrong, but I think they're going to be a good team. And I looked at the schedules, and it's the ebb and flow of the way things are. But Iowa also has just an incredibly easy schedule, including the crossover Pac-12 team games than Wisconsin does. We got about as tough as it gets. Oregon home, road USC. That's as bad as it gets this year. That's the worst case scenario, and then adding it to an Alabama game, road Iowa, road Nebraska. This is going to be a challenging season, but God, if we end up good, it's going to be such a satisfying year because it's going to mean something. 2017 meant something. 2016 meant something, but always in the back of my mind, I'm like, that wasn't exactly a murderer's row, people. So seeing success against this schedule would mean so much more.
Yeah, and then it comes to the question of what is success, right? Like is 8-4 success? I think it is, depending on. I think first of all, I think 8-4 is a great record with this schedule in year 2 of Fickle, but it also depends on how you play those big games, right? It's the old Nebraska coach, help me out. That would always get waxed in big games. Bo Pelini. It's the old Bo Pelini thing.
Yeah, nine win Pelini. Yeah,
9-win Pelini, but then he played a good team and he got beat 44-10 all the time, right? Right? Like you can't finish 8. Here's my thing: you can't finish 8-4 or 9-3 or 9-3, fine, obviously, but you can't finish 8-4. But your 4 losses are to the 4 big boys, and none of them were competitive. Like that's not going to feel good. So that's kind of where I'm at. I want to see us be. Quite frankly, you got to walk before you run. And Wisconsin has too often in the last 3 or 4 years. I don't know how you feel about this, but it feels like we've laid too many eggs in the big games. I just want us to get back to the point where we scare the good teams, right? We're competitive. We win 25% of them, and then next year we win half of them, right? Like that's what I want to see this year.
Well, I totally agree with you, Ryan. And if you don't think this year's schedule is beneficial for Wisconsin, don't look at 2020. Don't look at next year's because next year's is every bit as hard. It's just we get the road Tuscaloosa game, which I'm sure will be at night. It's but again, that's going to be and it's going to be the Birdie's got to fly. We're not going to have a grad transfer quarterback next year. It's going to be Fickle's guys are going to have to go in and do the system. But I'm excited. But let's not get too far ahead. But yeah, there are several scenarios where 8-4 would be 8-4, depending on how it's done, with the 2024 schedule is every bit as impressive as 12-1 was with 2017. I'm telling you, people do not understand that. But go back and look at that schedule. Yeah, I think one tough Michigan game, and then it was Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and then Miami in the bowl game. That was it. There was nothing on there. This year, you might be looking, if you're a pessimist, for the 4th or 5th win. depending on how good you think this team is going to be. I happen to think they're going to be better than that, but there is no Purdue at home. That's one of your easy ones. That's easy. Who knows what they're going to be if they take a jump under year two with their coach. Northwestern playing in a jerry-rigged soccer field 18 feet from Lake Michigan. That's scary. That's not an
That's not
easy
gonna be
game. I'm sorry.
no. That
It's
game has
horrible.
all sorts of funky attached to it, right? Like all sorts of stupid stuff attached to it that could happen.
These
Rutgers is a physical team. Like
Rutgers.
there's a lot of there. I'm telling you, this schedule's hard. No, they can't win. I think 6 wins, even with the schedule, is disappointing. I'll say that. I think I think 7 wins has got to be what you at least get, and I think anything below that is disappointing because listen, we talk about how tough all these other teams are, and they are, but like it's still Wisconsin, right? Like we're still supposed to win some of these. Otherwise,
Great.
we're not Wisconsin anymore.
Agreed. I don't want to say that we are. It's okay to win 5, 6, or 7 games. It's not okay. I'm just telling you the quality of this schedule, even in the circles of hardcore Wisconsin fans, and people are sleeping on this a little bit because the weeks off are like at Nebraska or at
Right.
Iowa. Those aren't even like the first 5 games we're talking about. So the jump is going to have to be big. And getting back to your Tyler Van Dyke points from earlier, he's going to have to be good. He doesn't have to be a
Mhm.
superstar, but he's got to. He's got to. And then one of the things we hear from camp is he'll make 5 or 6 great throws, and they'll just be a weird one. And not to say that it's Graham Mertz, but that was part of what Mertz's problem was, is that he would look great on several throws, and then just what is he doing? What is that? He throws it to the linebacker that's 4 feet from the receiver, and we're going to be better than that. But anyway, Ryan, this has been again one of the thrills of your lifetime. Thank you so much for coming on. We could superlative the hell out of this and go on for 6 hours, but I want to let you get back to your free SpectraVision or whatever what do you have in that hotel room, your free pay-per-view movies.
So I don't even know, man. I did bring the PS5. That's what I have because I have to do my online league that I'm in for the Locked On Badgers League. So
Oh,
I'll
very
do
good.
that. And then other than that, man, just that and sleep. We got camp again tomorrow. So that'll be fun.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for jumping on, and I'm glad your move went well. Welcome back to the Badger State. Good times. I'll take you up in the jet so you can see your place from above. It'll be pretty exciting for you. Maybe get the kids on board. But hey, lot of fun to come, and I'm really looking forward to an exciting Wisconsin year. So don't be a stranger.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man, as always.